Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Advancement Center, and welcome to the world of magic and miracles. As always, it's great to see you. It's great to be here. There's quite an activation happening for each one of us every day in our own individual way. Sometimes it's related to the energies that are coming onto the planet from the sun or from the timing of those energies arriving. Sometimes it's triggered in a song and something you see in words that you hear, but we are constantly being upgraded and activated, and it's an amazing feeling. Some of us may not know that it's happening, but if you can begin to feel that that's what's happening to you, you will settle in to the magic and the flow that's bringing you exactly what you need and taking you to exactly where you're supposed to be. I'm sleeping at night, but only for 3 or 4 hours, and I wake up as if I've never gone to sleep, but not tired. It's hard to describe. I know I'm on my ship or somewhere in the outer reaches of the universe. It's a feeling of my galactic origin. And it's like I had a 5-minute pause so that the new information can come flowing in. And it takes me to the words of a few words of a song. There is always something there to remind me. Always something there to remind me to take you where you are destined to go. So these words I'm about to deliver may take you somewhere, maybe not where they took me, but somewhere for you that's perfect. It's called Arcturian. I've been reading this book about the Arcturian civilization. I found this book buried in a box in my closet while I was cleaning and trying to get rid of things that I no longer use or need. The book is titled The Arcturian Anthology. I remembered having the book, and I remembered having met the authors, Tom Kenyon and Judy Sion, at an event where Tom was presenting information about sound frequency as well as other esoteric and spiritual information. The information in this book was channeled through Tom by Arcturians that he had come in contact with. I'm sure that I had read this book before, but it had been over 10 years ago that I had gotten this book. Oftentimes, I will give books away after I had read them, but this one I surprisingly kept. But it was out of sight and completely gone from my remembrance until I so-called accidentally found it in a box buried under some old clothes and papers. The information within the book stated that the Arcturian civilization was over 100 million years old, and that they are a fifth dimensional civilization, and that they typically move between the fifth and ninth dimensions. It said that their technology is of the fifth dimension and is highly advanced. In the book, the Arcturians that are speaking through Tom Kenyon acknowledged that they are a mission-driven civilization, and the mission that they were led to take on was to protect the region of the Milky Way galaxy, which of course Earth is a part of. According to the author, these are the words of their starship or sector commander, Sanat Kumara. I am known as Sanat Kumara. I shall be the first to speak for my fellow Arcturians, not because I am more elevated, but because I am very, very, very old. I have the perspective of intergalactic history, and I carry within me the passion and the commitment, as well as the benevolent intention shared by all Arcturians. I reside in multiple dimensions of consciousness simultaneously. At this moment, in order to communicate through words, I'm engaging my fifth dimensional aspect. However, my preference is to remain in the ninth dimension because it gives me an expanded perspective. It is here that I retain my physical form in light, yet poised at the threshold of formless light. It is an interesting juxtaposition, this ninth dimension. This juxtaposition between form and formlessness creates an interesting dichotomy, a paradox, and we Arcturians are fascinated by paradoxes and dichotomies. As a race of intergalactic beings, we reside primarily in the fifth through the ninth dimension. When we ascend to the ninth, past the ninth dimension, our identity as an Arcturian shifts. We become more light forms. Most of us prefer to keep our self-identity intact. This is because we Arcturians enjoy the exhilaration of individual autonomy in the midst of forces that continually work to degrade or eliminate self-identity. It is a peculiar art form, one which we enjoy very much. Enjoyment of our existence is one of the hallmarks of Arcturian consciousness. Another hallmark of the Arcturian inclination is our need for mission. We are not warlike, but we are fearless. When faced with forces seemingly larger than our own, we will find a way to work with or around such forces. Our experience as an intergalactic civilization spans hundreds of millions of years, and our experience of this universe is that it is filled to the brim with extraordinary energies and beings. Some of these entities have form and some of them do not. Some of them are benevolent and some of them are of malevolent intent. We have been cast in the role of guardian protectors through a combination of our nature and circumstance. We stand for the advancement of life, intelligence, and benevolence. We believe that beings should be free so long as they do not limit the freedom of others. Our technology allows us to be the guardian protectors of many worlds, especially of Earth, in this galaxy that is your home, which you refer to as the Milky Way. When we began our explorations as an intergalactic civilization approximately 100 million years ago, we became fascinated by the opposition of forces, and our technology is centered around the harnessing of latent energies between opposing forces. It was approximately 90 million years ago that I became what you might call a starship commander. How I rose to that position and how I became responsible for the Milky Way galaxy is of very little interest to me. The mission is what is important. About 10 million years ago, Earth had passed through some very tumultuous geological birth pangs, and there was some degree of stability, geologically speaking, in some areas of the planet. I decided to touch down upon this fledgling planet that I had observed for some time. I set my starship, which you would call a shuttle, which is a smaller version of the mothership, in an area that you call Japan, on a mountaintop called Kuruma. If you go to this spot, you will find a shrine marking the point of descent and ascent. I had interactions with those people in their very early formative period. As is often the case with intergalactic travelers to new worlds, I fell in love with one of the more extraordinary women. You would call her a shaman. She was able to travel through the interdimensional worlds. I was of the fifth dimension and she was of the third, but due to her remarkable abilities as a shaman, she clearly sensed my presence and the presence of my crew. Due to her extraordinary capabilities, she shifted her identity into her fifth dimensional light body and showed me the area, and we conceived a child in the fifth dimension. Due to her exceptional abilities, however, she brought the vibratory rate of my seed into the third dimension and gave birth to a daughter. When the time came for me to leave due to the duties that comprised the entire galaxy, I had to depart before she gave birth. But I was able to be in full contact with her whenever I entered cosmic contemplation. Perhaps it was because Earth is such an extraordinary planet with such tremendous potential that I became so fascinated and engaged with this orb. From that perspective, it seemed as if this far-flung planet on the outer spiral was so important to the mission. Perhaps it was simply because I had fallen in love with a woman of that world and her daughter, our daughter. Being the commander of a starship, much less the commander of a sector, requires personal sacrifice far beyond the norms of most individuals. Her name was Azura, and my love for her has spanned 10 million years. She and I can still be in communion with each other in other dimensions, even though we are physically separated. As I said, Arcturians are mission-oriented, and when I accepted the post as commander of the sector, that mission became the overpowering light and motivation for my actions. I was surprised by the love affair. It was unanticipated. She touched me deeply as a being, and it was difficult at a personal level to leave Mount Karama, her presence, and our daughter, but the mission was deemed larger and more important to me in that moment. I sensed my fellow Arcturians listening in on this conversation, some with bated breath, as you say. If I had to do it all over again, would I have done it the same way? I cannot say for sure. My duties as a sector commander were and are the overarching motivation for my actions, but it is a deep sadness personally that the mission eclipsed the feelings of my own heart. And I think this tension between our Arcturian nature to align with the mission needs to be tempered by the calling and the needs of our personal heart. There, I have said it. It's in the record. I am still the sector commander for the Milky Way and will continue to be so for some large expanse of time. But when my task has been completed, I will undertake no more, and I shall join with my Azura, and we shall live the life that we might have lived had I remained in Mount Karama. We will continue as light beings, but only up to the ninth dimension, so that I might still feel her touch. I long still for her touch. In our fifth dimensional bodies, our natural lifespan is several thousand years of your time. But before we became an intergalactic civilization, we mastered the art of regenesis, which is the regeneration of the physical body, in our case, the fifth dimensional body. This regenesis technology allowed us to explore the universe without having to cryogenically suspend ourselves. The regenesis chamber is a tube, round at both ends, that we enter in various cycles of our life. The more demanding the situation and draining of our life force, the more often we enter the regenesis chamber. Regenesis technology has allowed me to live for millions and millions of years. It has allowed me to explore dimensions of consciousness and develop abilities that I could have never developed had I been limited to the natural lifespan of a few thousand years. In the course of my exploration, I explored the higher dimensional bodies and decided upon the ninth dimension as my preferred energy state. It is here that I retain the form and precious identity as an Arcturian and have at the same time a more direct access to the higher light realms. This resting or existing within the ninth dimensional reality gives me a luminous presence, which is why some people refer to me as an ascended master. It is here that we have the most interesting perceptual paradox. I do not wear white robes. I am a sector commander, and I usually wear my uniform, but my energy field scintillates with white light, which is simply a function of physics. Being in a lower energy state, even fifth dimensional Arcturians will sense a luminous glow about me. A being in the third dimension can be overwhelmed by my presence because I can move through my own dimensionality from the fifth to the ninth. Some beings who have encountered me misinterpret their experience. It is true that I have a charismatic nature. It is true that my light body is a dazzling display, especially to those in lower dimensional realities, and it is true that I can shift through dimensions quite easily. But this ability has been acquired through a combination of Arcturian technology and personal exploration. Without the Regenesis technology, I would not have had the leisure to develop these abilities. Furthermore, anyone who encounters me will experience me relative to his or her own development or lack thereof. To a being who does not understand the use of quantum mechanics and light form technologies, I will seem like a god. I can seem to appear in the dimension where a being resides and then disappear, but this is due to a shifting of my frequency. The shifting of my frequency takes place through an interface between an Arcturian device and my own intention. Without the device, I would not be able to move through the various dimensions. This device is with me at all times. It is a smaller version of the larger mechanism within the starship. This mechanism allows the starship to shift its molecular structure into a higher frequency or lower frequency as required and as directed. The personal device has a similar technology. There is, I am afraid, a misunderstanding about ascended masters in general, and me in particular, because the lower vibratory rate being, let's say a human, encounters me through the tunnel of limited perception and intellectual understanding. He or she will have a delusional experience regarding my capabilities, unless he or she is particularly intelligent and or experienced in such matters. Because I have a charismatic energy and because the light that composes my higher dimensional body is so intense, and because I have abilities that seem supernatural, a human being may fall prey to one of the greatest and most insidious traps for human consciousness, the worshiping of another being. It is true that I am benevolent, but that is my nature as an Arcturian. It is true that I am a protector, for that is both my nature and my mission. It is true that I am a guardian for the elevation of life, intelligence, and freedom. But this does not make me omniscient or omnipotent. I have my limitations and I have my foibles. There are beings, what you would call alien intelligence, who have very advanced technology, but whose character is highly suspect. Some of these beings are incredibly arrogant and possess at the same time powerful technology, a very poor combination from our perspective. Some of the vengeful gods from your religion fall into this category. Some of your religions speak of benevolent gods, and these are more to our liking. But I would say to you that they are no more gods than I am. It is simply that they were perceived through the limited understanding of a more primitive people. It is difficult, if not impossible, to understand the true nature of a higher nature reality while residing in a lower dimension. All you can experience in a lower dimension in relation to a higher dimensional being are the after effects of the energetic encounter and the peculiar dimensional specific limitations of perception. It is here that I will mention one of the benevolent beings. You know him as Jesus of Nazareth. I know him as an Arcturian. Of the Arcturians I have ever known, he is truly the most compassionate and benevolent I have ever met, and he has taken Arcturian technology into applications that no Arcturian has accomplished. But I will leave that to him when he chooses to speak. Mary Magdalene also is an Arcturian. And the words here say, "In the day that I met Yeshua by the well, I was wearing this bracelet, and his mother Mary, also an initiate of Isis, recognized my bracelet. And in that moment, when I looked into his eyes and into her eyes, I understood why my teacher in the temple had changed my course of destiny. The emanation within me, dormant for all those years, was now entering a mission that had been planned long before my embodiment as a human woman. And this story involved the Holy Trinity of Yeshua, the Mother Mary, and myself. And I laughed at the irony of those words. The central feature of the emanation I wish to discuss is the amnesia that surrounds it. I knew that I was different from others. I didn't know why exactly, but I knew. My mother knew it as well, and when she took me to the temple of Isis, the high priestess saw it. And when I was passed from the care of my mother into the care of the high priestess, I entered a new chapter in my life. But even then, I did not understand my emanation. Even when I found myself flung through the portal to Arcturus, through altered states of mind, I did not understand my emanation. As my teacher took me under her wing and unveiled more and more of my emanation to me, I began to slightly understand it. But I find it curious to this day that I did not fully understand it until I looked into the eyes of Yeshua. My mind was shattered by the recognition, and my heart was shattered by my love for him. And through the pieces of myself, I looked into the eyes of Mary, the mother, who recognized me, and I knew in a flash the full breadth of my emanation and the purpose of my mission, all of it revealed to me in an instant by the well. As Yeshua and I began to discover more about each other, it was clear to both of us that we were on a mission together. He would be the one presented to the world, and I would be in the shadows. I had no problem with this, and I still have no problem with this. It was a part of the mission, and part of the mission involved me transferring to Yeshua the cosmic powers that I had access to through the mysteries of Isis. And then Yeshua said, I am an Arcturian, an emanation of me in the form of a human being lived upon this earth. The Bible, a highly distorted document, reports that I was born of a virgin birth, that Mary, my mother, received the Holy Spirit. In point of fact, it was an Arcturian conception. In the joining of the two, I was conceived, and although I had a human body, half of my genetic inheritance was Arcturian. In other words, my mother was a human and my father was a male Arcturian. Through my Arcturian nature, I could easily enter into contemplative states of mind and make contact with my fifth dimensional self. For I, as Jesus, was just a small speck of myself that resided in the fifth dimension. As I grew to be a man and understood my nature more fully, I realized that my fifth dimensional aspect possessed technologies I could access, and many of the miracles reported and attributed to me were a result of my using fifth dimensional technology. One of my greatest regrets, besides leaving Magdalene behind, was the temporary loss of our daughter in my life. But I was single-minded on the mission. Now that the mission is complete and I look at what has transpired on earth, I can move on. As Sanat Kumara mentioned, okay, I'm going to this part. I too, as does Sanat Kumara, look back and wonder, would I do it all over again? I agree with Sanat when he says that we Arcturians must begin to bring the equation of the heart into the overarching commitment to our mission. I am comforted by the fact that I am with my beloved Magdalene, but I am disheartened by what has happened to my message. Once again, there is always something there to remind you. Always something there to remind you. And finally, Earthlandians. So we on Earth, this collection of star seeds that make up humanity and the human entity, is on its way to becoming an advanced global civilization, an intergalactic citizen in the family of galactic civilizations. We are moving from the third to the fourth to the fifth dimension and beyond, and we will become one people like the Arcturians, Sirians, Pleiadians, Andromedans, and others. One people that have within them a piece of the DNA of many of those star seed families just listed and many more, brought together within what is known as the human entity or the human beings of Earth. We are indeed a melting pot. We have yet to discover what our common culture will be, but for me, we will be known as the people of the heart. This is the nature that will bind us together and separate us from our brothers and sisters' civilizations. And these people of the heart will discover their purpose as they move forward, and the common and dominant characteristics of the heart will bind them as one, as they will be called Earthlandians. It is you that will bridge the gap between the head and the heart with the grand awakening of the divine feminine. A pathway will be created for the merging of the reunion of the head and the heart, the masculine and the feminine, the reason and the intuition, the mother and the father. We will become a global intergalactic citizen, and instead of fighting with each other over trade tariffs, we will be trading with other galactic civilizations and sit in seats on the Council of Galaxies to add our input into the decisions of the day. There are so many moving parts to the materialization of all that I am speaking about. And each one of us, by being here now, is holding a space for this transformation and transition to occur. For we have played a major role in it all happening. As far as our planet is concerned, recent events like the peace in the Middle East are paving the way for the next step, which is a borderless planet leading to one galactic planet joining the family of intergalactic civilizations. And there's always something there to remind me. Always something there to remind you. Feel your activation. Feel the upgrade of your body and your being. Feel your connection to your galactic origin. I too am Arcturian. and you will find out who you are. Cheers to us all as we move towards being a galactic planet with no borders, like John Lennon, who said, imagine, imagine. Thank you again for listening. I am David.